AITA for rejecting my ex after she dumped me for being just a welder? I am 25 years old, and she is 24. We were together for 6 years in total, engaged for 8 months. I am a certified welder at a local fabrication shop. Good pay, a stable job, and I build things that matter. Madison works at a high-end salon downtown, one of those that charges $200 for a haircut. Madison is very beautiful, truly beautiful. The kind of woman who gets noticed at the grocery store and gets free drinks at bars she does not even want to go to. Me, I am a regular guy who masters MIG welding and can fix just about anything that breaks. Not ugly, but clearly no model. We worked because we matched on the things that mattered. We met in senior year of high school when she was dating Derek Lawson, the quarterback who peaked in high school and thought his jersey number made him special. I was the shop class guy who actually knew how to fix her old car when it broke down in the parking lot. Derek was too scared to get his hands dirty and ruin his hair. It took me 20 minutes to diagnose a shot alternator and another hour that weekend to replace it for the cost of parts. That is how it all started. She would text me when something broke. I would fix it. We would talk while I worked. She laughed at my jokes, and just like that, we clicked. The engagement happened last July during a camping trip we had planned for months. Just the two of us. A campfire and the ring I had been saving up for since February. 2 carats, white gold, 12 weeks of overtime. But it was worth every hour when I saw her face. We set the date for October of the following year to have time to save and prepare properly. My best friend Colton was the first person I told that she said yes. Colton is the best mechanic and has absolutely no filter when it comes to giving relationship advice. About time, he said. I was starting to think you were going to propose to your welding torch. Everything went well for months. We found a venue, booked a photographer, and started talking about honeymoon destinations. Madison showed me pictures of dresses she liked. I pretended to have an opinion on flowers and centerpieces. Everything was rolling smoothly. The first crack appeared in January when Madison started a fitness class at a trendy Pilates studio downtown. The membership cost more than what some families spend on groceries. She wanted to get back in shape after the holidays, and I completely supported her. The problem was not the fitness class. The problem was the women she met there. Madison came home with stories about her new gym friends. Tiffany, married to a corporate lawyer, drives a BMW, just got back from Cabo. Brittany, who is dating a cardiologist and looking at $50,000 rings. Chloe, recently divorced, $8,000 a month in alimony, and open to new possibilities. At first, it was just anecdotes. Madison talked about how Tiffany bought a $400 bag without thinking, or how Brittany's boyfriend took her on a surprise weekend trip to Napa. I listened. I commented. I did not worry. Why would I? Bad call. The story changed its tone in late February. Instead of just talking about what these women were doing, Madison started adding remarks. How Tiffany thought it was cute that Madison was getting married so young. How Brittany did not understand why she was settling down when she had so many options. How Chloe kept saying she was wasting her best years on one man. The first time she repeated one of these phrases to me, I kept it simple. These women do not know us. What matters is what we want, you and me. She agreed, said they were just being nosy, and promised not to let their opinions influence her, but the comments continued and became more and more specific. March is when things started getting weird. She started criticizing things that had never bothered her before. My work clothes were too dirty when I picked her up at the salon. Could I change before we went out? My truck was too loud. Why not buy a newer one? Maybe I should consider expanding my career ambitions now that we were getting married. None of these points caused an argument. Madison was not aggressive or mean, but every remark felt like a tiny test, as if she was checking my reaction to her suggestions for improvement. I stayed calm. I explained that my clothes got dirty because I did real work, that my truck was paid off and reliable, and that my plans included an underwater welding certification, which would double my salary within 2 years. She dropped it every time I stood my ground, but I could tell something had changed. It was as if she was comparing me to an external standard I was not aware of. The breaking point came in early April. We were supposed to have dinner at her parents' house. A simple family meal, nothing formal. I had worked all weekend on an urgent job site, structural repairs in a warehouse, and I finished late. I arrived at her place 20 minutes late, still in my work clothes, with a bit of metal dust on my hands. She looked at me, and her whole expression changed. Seriously, you were going to my parents' house like that? I looked down. Clean jeans, work shirt with the company logo, steel-toe boots, a little dust. Yes, but nothing major. I came straight from work. Your parents have seen me in work clothes before. It was different. This is a dinner. Can you not at least change? Madison, I am already late. Your parents do not care what I wear. She stared at me for 30 seconds as if I were speaking a foreign language. Then she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Fine, but it is embarrassing. That word hit differently. Not disappointed, not frustrated, embarrassed. As if being seen with me was something she had to excuse. The dinner was extremely awkward. Madison barely spoke, scrolled on her phone, and seemed somewhere else. Her parents tried to include me in the conversation about the wedding, but Madison gave short answers and changed the subject. When her dad asked where I was with the underwater welding certification, she flat out rolled her eyes. On the drive back, I tried to bring it up. Do you want to explain what happened? Nothing. I am just tired. Madison, you acted like you were ashamed to be with me. I was not ashamed. I just wished you had made an effort. An effort for what? To be someone I am not. She did not answer. She looked out the window until we got to her place. The next day, I called Colton to vent about the whole situation. And then what? She is going to be mad because your hands are too rough from building things that do not collapse. April and May were like watching a car crash in slow motion. Madison did not suddenly become a different person. The changes were gradual, almost subtle but constant enough that I felt something shifting beneath our feet. The fitness class group became her main social circle. Overnight. She went out to dinner with them twice a week, weekend brunches, shopping trips to overpriced boutiques I had never heard of. When I asked to meet these women who were taking up so much space in her life, she always had an excuse. They were busy. The timing was not right, maybe next time. Meanwhile, she started declining invitations to see our mutual friends. Game nights with my buddies became not really her thing. From then on, double dates with couples we had known for years were suddenly too immature for the stage she was at in her life. She stopped coming to my company barbecues and family gatherings, using work as an excuse or saying she already had plans with her fitness friends. Colton was the first to say it clearly during a night out with friends in late April. "Where is Madison tonight?" asked our buddy Aaron. "Wine tasting with her fitness friends," I replied. Colton looked up from his pool shot. "Again? What is this, the fourth weekend in a row? Either these women are alcoholics, or Madison is training to become a sommelier." The criticisms became more frequent and more direct. My apartment was pretty basic. Had I thought about upgrading it? My weekend clothes were very casual. Maybe I should invest in nicer shirts. My idea of a good date, dinner at a local spot then a movie, was a bit routine compared to what other couples did. Every criticism came with a suggestion for improvement, always presented as caring advice rather than a complaint. Madison was not mean per se, which made it even worse. She treated me like a project to optimize. I started paying attention to the specific vocabulary she used. Words like ambitious, sophisticated, and professional kept coming up in our conversations, always in contrast to aspects of our life. The other men were ambitious. I was comfortable. Her new friends were sophisticated. Our old circle was a bit immature. Her colleagues' boyfriends had professional careers. I just had a job. During a beer night in May, I repeated a few of these remarks to Colton. Wait a minute," Colton said, almost choking on his beer. "She said you just had a job? Man, what does Tiffany do again? Besides spending her husband's money on yoga leggings?" Our intimate life took a hit too. Madison was less interested, more distant, as if her mind was elsewhere even when we were together. She started working more hours at the salon, taking extra clients on weekends. When I suggested we spend more time together, she reminded me how important it was for her to focus on her career and expand her network. In May, it got worse. She started comparing me directly to other men. Tiffany's husband just got a promotion at his firm. Brittany's boyfriend was looking at houses in the upscale neighborhood. Chloe was dating a guy who owned his own business and drove a Tesla. "I am not saying you should be like them," Madison would say after telling me these stories. "I am just saying it is interesting how some people really know how to get what they want." I tried to address it directly several times, asking her if she was unhappy in our relationship, if she needed something specific from me, if we should postpone the wedding to fix what was wrong. Every time, she denied there was a problem, told me she loved me as I was, and then followed up with a new suggestion for me to improve. The underwater welding certification became a constant topic. When was I starting the training? How much more would I make? Would I consider moving somewhere with more opportunities? She had done her own research on underwater welders' salaries and was convinced it was my chance to reach my potential. The breaking point came in late May during a conversation about the wedding budget. We had planned a simple but beautiful celebration, about $20,000, paid partly by our families and our savings. Not luxurious, but far from cheap. Madison started talking about Tiffany's wedding, which cost $80,000 and looked like a magazine spread, and about the $60,000 engagement party Brittany was planning. About the fact that Chloe, with her divorce, could afford whatever she wanted for her next wedding. "I am not saying we have to spend that much," Madison said. "But do you not think we should consider what we are capable of if we really made an effort?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you got serious about your career options, if I took on more high-end clients, maybe we could have the kind of wedding that truly represents who we want to be." "And who do we want to be?" She could not answer. Instead, she showed me pictures of Tiffany's wedding on her phone. The venue, the flowers, the dress, the photographer, everything exuded luxury. "Do you not think it is gorgeous?" "It is pretty, but it is not us." "How do you know what is us?" "Maybe we are thinking too small." Madison was no longer just taking advice. She was adopting a new worldview. Her friends had made her believe that getting married young meant missing out on opportunities, that marrying someone with a manual trade meant accepting a limited life. June is when I stopped trying to save something that was already dead. That last month felt like living with a stranger who just happened to have my fiancé's face. Madison would come home from her classes or dinners with her new friends and immediately start scrolling on social media, showing me places she wanted to go, restaurants she wanted to eat at, experiences she wanted to have, all expensive, all requiring a lifestyle we did not have. "Look at this place in Napa where Brittany went. It is incredible, right? It looks nice. We should plan a trip like that." "Madison, it is a $500 a night hotel." "So what? Other people our age manage to afford nice things." These conversations were daily. Work became my refuge. I had started the underwater welding certification in early May. Classes 3 nights a week after my workdays. The program was intense. Technical diving, underwater cutting techniques, safety protocols that can save your life at 60 feet deep. I loved it. Madison had initially supported the idea, mainly because she saw the salaries attached to it. But when the training started demanding more time and energy, she became hostile. I was always tired. I was never available. I was no longer prioritizing our relationship. Yet she was spending 4 evenings a week with her friends and working overtime to afford her new lifestyle. But my 3 nights of classes were unacceptable. Colton summed up the absurdity during a study session in his garage. "Wait, let me get this straight. She is mad because you are studying to earn more, which she wants. But she is not mad about spending her money on classes where they teach you how to breathe better while stretching." Yeah, flawless logic. In late June, everything blew up during a conversation that should have been simple, just about our shared calendar. She wanted to go to a wine tasting with her friends the same weekend we had planned to visit my parents. When I pointed out the conflict, she suggested rescheduling the family visit. "It is not like we do not see your parents all the time. Madison, we have not seen them since Easter, and we made these plans 2 months ago." "I know, but this tasting is important." "Important for what?" "For my career. These women know people in the beauty industry. Tiffany's husband has connections in major cosmetics companies." I stared at her. "You are a hairstylist, not an executive at a multinational makeup company." "Maybe I could become one. Maybe I am thinking bigger than cutting hair my whole life." She was not just dissatisfied with our relationship. She was dissatisfied with herself, her choices, the life she had built before meeting her new friends. The wine tasting became the symbol of everything wrong between us. Madison went despite me reminding her that it ruined our family plans. She came home 3 hours late, slightly tipsy, and full of stories about the amazing people she had met. "You should have come. You would have learned so much about what successful people actually do with their weekends." "I was visiting my parents as planned." "Yes, but sometimes you have to choose between being comfortable and being ambitious." Colton's reaction when I told him about it was perfect. So drinking overpriced wine with strangers is being ambitious. And visiting the people who raised you is being comfortable. I would love to see those women change a tire or make a budget. High-level ambition, truly. July was the month of decisions. Madison had started making comments about postponing the wedding, not canceling it, just pushing it back a year or two to find our direction. She wanted time to make sure we were building the right foundation for our future. I told her we had to make a decision, move forward with the wedding as planned, or cancel everything. Why does it have to be all or nothing? Why can we not just take some time to grow individually? Because we are either building something together or we are not. There is no middle ground. Madison, what you are saying is very black and white. Yes, because commitment is black and white. Madison could not handle that level of clarity. She had gotten used to living in a world where everything was negotiable, where every decision could be postponed, revised, adapted. We did not argue. No yelling, no throwing things. We just stopped functioning as a couple. Madison made plans without consulting me. I focused on my work and my certification. We went days without real conversations, weeks without talking about important things other than who was picking up the groceries. By early August, we were essentially roommates who happened to be engaged by accident. We saw each other for an hour in the evening, exchanged pleasantries, and went to bed at different times. The end came on a Tuesday night in mid-August. She was coming back from yet another dinner with her friends and got home around 10 p.m. I was studying for my final certification exam, spread out on the kitchen table with books and practice tests. She sat across from me and watched me work for 10 minutes before speaking. Do you ever think about what our life will look like in 5 years? I looked up. I think about it all the time. And what do you see? A house with a workshop in the garage, maybe kids, a good job that I like and pays well, time with family and friends, building something that lasts. She nodded slowly. That is nice, but I do not think that is enough for me anymore. What would be enough for you then? I do not know yet. That is the problem. Madison, you cannot plan a wedding around hypothetical better options. I'm not talking about other people. I am talking about potential I did not know I had. Potential for what? I think we should talk about taking a break, she finally said. You do not take a break when you are engaged. Madison, are we getting married or not? Why does everything have to be so absolute with you? Because that is how commitment works. The conversation lasted an hour, going in circles like it had for weeks. Madison wanted flexibility, options, time to explore her potential. I wanted a partner sure about choosing me, sure about building a future with me, sure about us. We could not give each other what the other wanted. So, we had to end it. The actual breakup happened 3 days later, on a mild Friday evening. We had had time to think, and neither of us had changed our minds. Madison had been talking to her fitness friends for 3 days. When she came home, she looked like someone who had just received a lot of encouraging advice on a difficult but necessary decision. I have been thinking about what we talked about, she said, as if presenting a project. And I think we want different things right now. What do I want that you do not? You want everything to stay the same. You want to get married and continue the exact same life we have always had, just with rings and a certificate. I want to evolve. I want to challenge myself. It was the most honest thing she had said in months. Fine, I replied. Let us cancel it. I think she expected me to fight, to try to convince her to stay, to negotiate. When I agreed immediately, she looked almost disappointed. Just like that. Just like that. Madison, you just told me you cannot evolve while being married to me. What am I supposed to argue with there? I did not say it like that. Yes, you did. You said you cannot reach your potential if we get married, which means you think I am holding you back. I think the relationship is holding us both back. From what? Again, no clear answer, just vague references to potential, growth, possibilities. The ring came next, without drama. Madison took it off and placed it on the coffee table as if returning a borrowed book. I took it and put it in my pocket. As for the wedding deposits, I will handle the cancellations. You handle your dress, and our friends are adults. They will figure it out. We spent an hour sorting out the details. She was keeping her apartment. I would get my stuff that weekend. We split our shared belongings, which was not much. We would inform our families separately. Everything happened surprisingly calmly. I packed my things while she was out with her friends. It did not take long. I had always kept my own apartment. Clothes, some books, a few dishes, my tools that were in her garage. Everything fit in my truck in 2 trips. I left her keys on the kitchen counter with a note thanking her for our 6 years together and wishing her good luck. No need for a dramatic scene. Everything had already been said. The hardest part was calling her parents. They had been preparing to become my in-laws for 8 months. I gave them the basic outline. They were disappointed. Her little sister, Lily, took it even harder. She was thrilled to be a bridesmaid and had already picked out her dress. I explained to her that sometimes adults realize they are not as compatible as they thought, and it is better to figure that out before the wedding rather than after. My own parents were relieved, which surprised me until they explained they had been worried about Madison's change in attitude for several months. Apparently, I had not hidden my frustration as well as I thought. Most of our mutual friends were not shocked either. Some said they had noticed Madison seemed different lately, more critical and less interested in group activities. The only real surprise was how quickly Madison moved on. Within 2 weeks, she was already posting pictures of expensive restaurants and weekend getaways with her fitness friends. Her social media presence had completely changed. Fewer couple and family event photos, more selfies and group shots with her new circle. I stepped away from social media entirely for the first month. I did not need to see updates on Madison's life or explanations about our breakup. Colton was the first to check in on me. He showed up at my place with a pack of beer and his very subtle approach to emotional support. "So Madison is finally free to explore her full potential," he said, opening a bottle. "I give it 3 months before she texts you to say yoga classes did not prepare her for the real world." From September to November, I rebuilt my single life and focused on my goals, the ones I had set before Madison decided our relationship was holding her back. I finished my underwater welding certification in early October, passing all the technical and practical exams on the first try. The program was demanding, but I loved the technical aspects and the problem-solving work required for underwater repairs. A week after my certification, I had 3 job offers. It is a specialized field, and there are not many people qualified to do it safely. I chose a company that handles infrastructure repairs, bridges, dams, and offshore platforms throughout the Southeast. The money was exactly what I had hoped for. My first contract was a bridge inspection and repair. $2,800 for a weekend of work. Not bad for someone supposedly not ambitious enough. In November, I moved into a better apartment. 2 bedrooms, a garage for my truck and gear, and a workshop space for my personal projects. Nothing fancy, but comfortable and functional. I started saving for a down payment on a house, figuring I could buy something within 2 years. Work kept me busy and fulfilled. The fabrication job gave me a steady income and interesting projects. The underwater contracts were both demanding and highly lucrative. I was constantly learning. I was solving problems I had never encountered before. I was developing rare skills. I also started going to the gym regularly for the first time since high school. Not to prove anything, but because underwater work requires real physical fitness. I was not actively looking to date, but I was not avoiding it either. I went out with a few women I met through friends or work. Nothing serious, just dinners and movies. It felt good to be around people interested in me and not in the idea of changing me. Through mutual friends, I sometimes heard news about Madison. She was still working at the salon but taking extra classes in an advanced beauty technique. She still hung out with her fitness friends. Apparently, the group dynamic was getting complicated. Stories about money, jealousy, and competition for attention in the same social circles. In November, I ran into Tiffany at a coffee shop downtown. One of Madison's friends, the lawyer's wife, the one with the BMW and the trips to Cabo. She recognized me and came over to say hi. "How are you doing? Madison told me you guys decided to go your separate ways." "I'm doing well. Work is going great, keeping busy." "That is good to hear. Madison said you were doing some kind of specialized welding now." "Underwater welding. I just finished my certification." Tiffany looked genuinely interested. "That sounds fascinating and probably pays very well." "It is good work." "I bet it is. My husband's firm has clients in the maritime industry. They are always complaining about not finding enough qualified underwater welders." We talked for a few more minutes about work and mutual acquaintances. Tiffany was polite and genuinely friendly, which made me wonder how much she had actually influenced Madison. Maybe Madison was hearing what she wanted to hear and not actual advice. At the end of our conversation, Tiffany told me something interesting. "For what it is worth, I always thought you and Madison were good together. Sometimes people get restless and think the grass is greener on the other side. December brought my first big underwater contract, a dam repair project that would last 3 weeks and pay more than 6 months at my old fabrication job. I loved every minute of it. The crew was small, 5 guys, all specialists in different aspects of underwater construction. We worked efficiently, trusted each other, and fixed problems most people could not even imagine. Between my regular job and the underwater contracts, I was making more money than I had ever dreamed of. I started thinking about buying a house sooner than planned. With my income and what I had saved, I could aim for something serious. Colton helped me tour houses on weekends in December. His comment on my new financial situation was classic Colton. "So you are making 6 figures doing something most people cannot even pronounce, and Madison thought you were not ambitious enough. I am starting to think those fitness classes affected more than just her flexibility." January brought trouble. At first, just occasional sharp pains behind my left eye. Often when I was working in awkward positions or on complex underwater repairs. I thought it was work-related, neck tension from the heavy dive gear. I strained from poor visibility or sinus pressure. The headaches increased in frequency in February, stronger, more sudden, episodes of pain that left me dizzy and disoriented for several minutes. I started keeping ibuprofen in my truck and taking more frequent breaks during long work sessions. The vision problems started in early March, at first for a few seconds, then longer and longer, more and more frequent. When I started having trouble focusing during precision welding jobs, I knew something was really wrong. You cannot afford the slightest lapse in attention when using cutting torches in confined spaces. I made an appointment with my doctor in late March. After asking about my symptoms and doing a few basic tests, he immediately sent me to a neurologist. The first indication that this was not just work-related stress or eye strain. The neurologist ordered a series of tests, an MRI, blood work, and cognitive exams. He was professional but clearly concerned by what my first scan showed. He asked for info on my family history and any possible head trauma. While waiting for the results, I tried to maintain a normal routine. I continued my regular fabrication work, but turned down the underwater contracts until I knew what was going on. Colton was the one who drove me to get the results. The seizure happened on a Saturday morning in early April. I was at Home Depot buying materials for a personal project when everything went sideways. 1 second, I was comparing copper fittings. The next second, I was on the floor with paramedics asking me simple questions I could not answer. I do not remember the seizure itself, just the confusion afterward. The paramedics said witnesses reported about 90 seconds of convulsions before I gradually regained consciousness. At the ER, there were more tests, more doctors with increasingly serious faces. Finally, a neurosurgeon sat down with me to show me what the scans revealed. A brain tumor, a walnut-sized glioma in an area responsible for vision and motor coordination. That explained the headaches, the vision problems, and the seizure. Surgery was possible, but complex and risky. Sometimes life throws unexpected obstacles at you, and you face them or you fall apart. I chose to face them. The surgeon was optimistic about a complete removal, but honest about the possible complications. Brain surgery is not like fixing a bad weld. You cannot just grind away the damaged part and start over. We scheduled the operation for the following Tuesday and started preparing for a long recovery period. My boss at the fabrication shop was incredibly supportive. He kept my job open, handled the insurance, and assured me my work would be waiting for me. The underwater welding company was just as understanding. They knew skilled workers were rare. The news spread fast in our small town. Most of my friends started organizing visits and support. My parents drove down from 2 states away. What I did not expect was to hear from Madison. Colton was with me when the nurse told me Madison had called to ask for visiting hours. "Oh, hell no," Colton said immediately. "She disappears for 8 months and shows up now that you are in the hospital. Then what? She is going to bring you flowers and an apology letter." Madison came to the hospital on Saturday, 3 days before my surgery. I was reviewing the preoperative instructions when she walked into the room, looking like she had been crying, but with something desperate in her eyes that had nothing to do with my health condition. "I heard what happened to you. How are you feeling?" "Okay." "Surgery on Tuesday, then recovery." She sat down uninvited and started with what felt like a normal conversation about the doctors, the procedure, and my parents' visit. After about 10 minutes of careful small talk, she moved on to what seemed to be the real reason for her visit. Look, I know the timing is bad, but I really need to talk to someone I trust about some problems I'm having right now. There it was. Not, I am sorry about your diagnosis. Just, I need you. You should leave, I told her directly. Please, listen to me. I made some huge mistakes and I do not know what to do. Madison, I am having brain surgery in 3 days. I do not want to hear about your problems. Her mask of fake compassion dropped immediately, replaced by the arrogant attitude I knew too well. Great, but I am in a real mess. Okay. The guy I was seeing was actually married, and his wife is trying to ruin my life. And my friends convinced me to invest in real estate projects that were a complete scam. And now I owe almost $300,000. I stared at her without a word. And you thought I would care about this because? Because we were together for 6 years. Because you know me better than anyone. Because I lost my job and I cannot pay my rent anymore, and everyone has abandoned me. Sounds like you found exactly what you were looking for. What does that mean? You wanted to explore your potential, date more ambitious people, see what you were capable of. So how is that working out? Madison's voice kept rising, growing more desperate and more aggressive. I know I made mistakes. Okay, I know I said things I should not have said, but I thought you were mature enough to help someone in need. Help with what? Cleaning up the mess you made because I was not good enough for you. I pushed the nurse call button. Madison saw it and completely lost it. You can't be serious. I'm telling you I need help. Ma'am, you need to lower your voice, the nurse said as she walked in. This is ridiculous. We were engaged. We were going to get married. You can't throw away 6 years over one mistake. Ma'am, I am going to have to ask you to leave the room. 2 security guards appeared as Madison became hysterical. I still love you. I still care about you. Everything I said was stupid. I was wrong. I am sorry. Ma'am, come with us, one of the guards said. You are making a huge mistake. I am the best thing that ever happened to you. You are going to regret this. Escorted off the floor, she kept screaming down the hallway that I was being unreasonable and that she wanted to fix things. The nurse shook her head. Are you okay? Never been better, I answered honestly. Colton arrived an hour later, coffee in hand, looking like someone who had already heard the whole story in the hallway. I told him about Madison's surprise visit and her plea for help. So, Colton said when I finished, she dates a married man, gets scammed by her friends, loses her job, and then she comes begging for help from the guy she dumped because he was not ambitious enough. He shook his head. That is like setting your house on fire and then asking the firefighter for a loan. The surgery went perfectly, 8.5 hours, but the surgeon managed to remove the entire tumor. Clean margins, no complications. The recovery was ideal. 10 days in the hospital, then 6 weeks at my parents' house, the time needed to regain all my strength and coordination. Colton came over almost every day, bringing news from work and absurd stories about what he was telling the neighbors. I told Mrs. Henderson they had to replace part of your brain with a welding torch, he said one day. She believed it for 30 seconds until I said the flame would be a problem for your sleep. During my recovery, I got updates on Madison's situation through Lily, who sometimes came to visit me. What Madison had confessed to me at the hospital was actually the sugar-coated version. The married man she was involved with was not just cheating on his wife. He was using Madison and several other women to move funds through questionable real estate investments. His wife was not only furious, she was cooperating with federal investigators in a case against her husband's businesses. Madison was not just a victim. She was facing potential legal trouble for her involvement. The $300,000 in debt was real, but she also owed back taxes for undeclared income tied to the investments. The IRS had frozen all her accounts during the investigation. The salon had fired her not just because of the personal drama, but because they found out she was overcharging clients and pocketing the difference. Her famous friends had not only disappeared, but they were actively avoiding her so as not to be associated with the investigation. And the best part of it all, Madison's parents refused to bail her out. After learning how she had treated me and hearing about her meltdown at the hospital, they decided their daughter needed to face the consequences. She had to file for bankruptcy, lost her apartment, and had to go live with a distant aunt in another state. The investigation followed her there, and she was eventually charged in connection with financial misconduct, though she pleaded guilty to a lesser misdemeanor involving restitution. By August, I was back to work full-time, including the underwater contracts. The doctors had fully cleared me. No cognitive aftermath, no loss of coordination, no restrictions. While organizing my gear, I found the engagement ring in my safe. I sold it and put the money toward buying a house. No point in keeping souvenirs from people who do not exist anymore. Comment. Thank you for being here with me for this story. It truly makes you think about where we find our worth. I believe setting boundaries is not an act of cruelty, but a profound act of self-care. We are all responsible for the choices we make and the life we build from them. Sometimes, the most powerful response is simply to choose your own peace and walk away. True healing begins when we stop rereading the chapters that hurt us. This story also reveals how genuine kindness and support appear when it matters most, not just when it is convenient. I hope this reminds you that your path is your own, and it is worth protecting. Always remember to be kind to yourself first, because from that foundation, all other healthy relationships can grow. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.